Hey guys, it's Vandiazzo back again with another Card Fight Vanguard deck profile. If you guys enjoyed them, to like, comment, subscribe, and donate to the Patreon. Let's get one started. Today we have Dark States, Greedon, Set 4. Now, Set 3 Greedon was okay. Like, it had Greedon, but like it had like Incan, and that was pretty much it for the set. Honestly, Greedon Set 4, with the reveal of 2 cards, its deck stepped up in consistency almost immediately. And I guess that makes sense because they were double rare or triple rare. But, like, that's still pretty good that only 2 cards pretty much made the deck so much more consistent. And, yeah. So let's just go ahead and get this started because I have nothing to say besides, like, Greedon can now do double restand in a turn. First up, we have our starter in Desire Devil Tida. Grade 0 boost, 5k shield, 6k base, auto once road upon if you want second draw a card. You know nothing too special about it. You just run it because, hey, it looks like one of the Greedon cards. That's pretty much it. Next up, we have our Overtrigger and Hades Dragon Deity of Resentment Gale Mage Held. 5k base, 50k shield, grade 0 with boost. Overtrigger, you may have one Overtrigger in your deck. When revealed as a trigger, remove that card, draw a card, choose one of you, it gets plus 1 million for the turn. If revealed during your draw check, activates additional effect, which is you get during your turn, all of your Vanguards get plus 10k and plus 1 critical until the end of fight. So pretty much, if you draw check this in Greedon becomes a 23 double crit beat stick during the rest of the game. And that's really good for Greedon. Like, it's arguably the best Overtrigger for Greedon. Like, a lot of people run Obari in, like, Barrow Magnus and Bruce, apparently. I understand why, because, like, Bruce can get numbers with the rear guards, and, so can Barrow Magnus, but I honestly prefer the Dark States Overtrigger in all of them, just because, like, puts the Vanguard more pressure. Like, that's honestly why I do it with Bruce. Like, the rear guards already have pressure. Might as well just make the Vanguard pressure, too. And Barrow Magnus, you know, that double crit, might as well make a triple crit, because triple crit really good. And then this one, just like in Greedon, it's just always going to be this one, because Obari makes no sense besides just to give Greedon 2 million. But why would you give it 2 million? Like, the chances of both players checking their Overtriggers at the same time is very doubtful. I mean, I did it, but that was still very unlikely. So, really good in Greedon. Makes Greedon a hard beat stick, especially because, like, he can do double restand now, and that's very dangerous. I've yet to see it happen, because I've died. The one time I saw Greedon get an Overtrigger, I literally died that same turn. But I think it is still good. So, yeah, 1 copy of the Resentment Boy over here. Next up, we have our trigger lineup, which is 3 copies of Flinty Slasher as a crit, 4 copies of Steam Deviate Dragon as a crit, which is auto rear at the end of the battle. Let it boost it, put it to soul, choose when it gets plus 2 for the turn. Yeah, you don't use that. Like, you use it when you're about to lose. You don't use it, and when I say you're about to lose, I mean you use this when you're about to deck out, like how I did, and I barely didn't win. Just because Guardian Power is BS. But, like, still really good, because you just call him as, like, Self to Soul Fodder, and he still does something on rear, I guess. So, 4 copies. We've got 4 copies of the Draw Trigger and Browse Wild Master Riley. Yeah, I don't know if other people run draw triggers, but that 10k shield is really good for me, so I'm not even going to bother disagreeing with it. 4 copies, just because it's a 4k base, 5k shield, just boost. Continues guard circle. If your opponent's Vanguards go through good, you get plus 5k shield. Yeah, 10k shield is really good, considering you're just calling down like half your hand at the time. Like, always, you're calling down 4 cards. And the draw trigger, while it does get you closer to decking out, you know, like I said earlier, adds Guardian Power, so I like it. So 4 copies. 4 copies of our Heal and Steam Scar Male Nigol. Nothing too special about it, just a 15k shield with 5k power and grade 0 boost. Yeah, nothing too special about it, you just run it because you need to heal. Next up, we have our grade 1, starting it off with a Blitz Order and 2 copies of Tartarus Beat Scram. Grade 1 Blitz Order, if your soul has 5 or more cards, which is almost very easy to do. Like, the second you use Greedon, you're going to hit 5 cards immediately. Like, even if you haven't done any soul charging. Actually, wait, if you've used the grade 2 skill and your Soul Blast 2, you have 2 cards in soul, and you just show 4 cards to show with Greedon, so you have 6 cards. Automatically, you can use this on first Greedon turn. If your soul has 5 or more cards, choose one of you, it gets plus 15 for the battle. Yeah, just Greedon becomes like a 28k base. All around, I think this is a really good card for Greedon, just to, like, add extra shield when you, maybe, like, you're kind of going a bit ham with the overcalling, like how I do sometimes. This does come back to help me, like, when I've gone a bit over the limit. And, you know, I think it's really good because I can just imagine Greedon, like, in terms of artwork, I can just imagine Greedon being the thing that's charging these people, or, like, that's right behind them with that flame. So all around, I like this thing. I think it fits Greedon pretty well. 2 copies. 3 copies of Desire Devil Yada, 8k base, 5k shield, grade 1 with boost. Auto rear when your Vanguard attacks if your soul is 3 or more. Sorry, if you have 3 or more stand units, not your soul. Retire this unit, soul charge 2, choose up to 1 card with the same name as your Vanguard from your soul, put it at the top of your deck. Basically a way to draw check a Greedon. I mean, you could also use this in Barrow, but, like, I don't see why. I could see why, but like, it's a debatable ability, especially because like the Vanguard has to attack 4, and you probably aren't gonna have 3 or more stand rear guards unless you just don't boost. The thing about this thing though is that's really good though, because like he retires himself, so you do have to call 5 units if you want to use Greedon skill with this thing. But you know, you get soul charge too, so Greedon gets closer to hitting 10 soul for 15k plus. And if you can hit that 15k plus on your first restand, oh god, Greedon hits from numbers, like it's crazy. I mean, you probably won't, but like if you can get on first grade 3 turn, that's pretty good. And you know, it's a possibility to get Greedon from soul. Like, I've seen a lot of people, or at least I've seen my friend, now his average play with Boshaku, the thing that shoves something to soul to search or copy for him, is shove Greedon to soul because of the way I rush Greedon. Because Greedon's weakness is that you rush him early, even if Boshaku makes it so that he gets 5k early. If you know what you're doing, essentially Greedon dies to an early rush. Because, like, they can't handle it with, like, the first grade 3 turn of adding hand cards back to hand. So, you know, if you can get a copy of Greedon and Soul, you might just want to keep it in there, but it's also a way just to get Persona right. So 3 copies of Yada, 3 copies of Desire Devil Inken, AK base, 5k shield, Greedon with boost. I feel bad for this guy because like he gets replaced so quickly by the bunny. Like there's no reason to use him unless like you have the extra counterblast, but counterblast 2, bit hefty when the bunny's is 10 times better. Auto is placed on rear if your Persona Road Soul Charge 1 is a mandatory Soul Charge, so you could deck yourself out from this. I know I literally lost because of this thing, because it left me down with 2 deck cards. It means I couldn't do drive checks, and the card I Soul Charged was a crit. If I could have swung with Vanguard, which was big enough to get rid of 95% of the hand, it would have won. I blame Inken for that. Like it isn't really Inken's fault, but it partially is. And then Auto, when it's placed on rear, when it's put into from Soul into rear, sorry, when it's put from rear to Soul, by your Vanguard's ability, counterblast 2, choose a Vanguard, it gets plus 5 counter drive for the turn. So you can use Barrel because Barrel can just shove it to Soul, but honestly, I don't think it's worth it, just because, like, you know, Barrel already has counterblast. This, though, like, it works fine in Greedon, or it worked fine in set 3 Greedon, now it kind of works okay-ish in set 4 Greedon. But, you know, get you that 5k on Van, so Greedon's hitting for at least 18, probably with some Bushakus behind it, and it gets an extra drive, meaning it can swing with more drive checks. So all around, I like Inken for that. Really decent card. If you have bunnies, prefer to call the bunnies. But if you don't have bunnies, call this. Those 3 copies. 4 copies of Rescue Hate Dragon RPG. 6k base, grade 1 with boost, 0 shield, continue Sentinel. You may have only up to 4 Sentinels in your deck. Auto, when it's placed on guard circle, choose one of your units. It cannot be until the battle. If your hand has 2 or more cards, choose a card from hand, discard it. So pretty much what that means is if this is only one of the cards in your hand when you would play this, you don't have to discard anything, which is really nice. Especially because you are in the early game, because you're calling like 4 rear guards down, or maybe even 5 if you're trying to do Yada really early. You're going to end up kind of going over, stepping the boundaries of your resources, and you're going to need those hand cards and that PG. All around, really good. I do prefer the deck with the PG. I think this is one of the decks that might be able to run without PGs, but I'm not going to try that because I think this one kind of needs it, but I can see it maybe not needing it if you play it right. 4 copies of Risk Skill Hate. 4 copies of Desire Double Bubetsu, aka the Bunny, AK base, grade 1, boost, 5k shield, auto rear once per turn. When your other rear guard is put into your soul by your Vanguard's ability during your turn, counterblast won't choose a card from your hand called to an open rear guard circle, and if your soul has 10 or more cards, draw a card. May even be used if this unit is put into your soul at the same time as the other units. Basically, if you use this with Greedon, 4 cards are going to soul, counterblast 1, call something to hand from to the front row, and you draw a card. And this is basically how you do double Greedon. I don't know how to do it per se, because I have yet to pull it off, so I don't really remember how to like do the double Greedon restand. The reason for it is because I've actually never pulled it off myself, because every time I try to, I know it requires at least 2 bunnies to do it, and I literally never have 2 bunnies at my hand at one time. Like, I always have one, and then I don't draw the other until literally directly after the other bunny leaves my hand, whether it's for discard because I needed to discard it for guarding purposes, or maybe I just called it because I needed just to rush early. Nope, I never have 2 bunnies in my hand at the same time, but I believe it requires 2 bunnies, 1 Imuka, and something else, but I don't really know. You do need a lot of counterblast for it, obviously, but Greedon can afford to do that. Or maybe just like 3 bunnies and 1 Muka is good enough, but I can never have 2 bunnies in my hand at one time. I'm never going to have 3 bunnies in my hand at one time. But pretty much, Greedon gets to do a double restand. He gets like the 10k power. He swings for big numbers. You get a good amount of hand cards out of it. You still get to do a multi-attack with them if you have extra counterblast left over. All around, Bubetsu is a really good card, and it, along with the double rare, like fixes deck's consistency so much. 4 copies of Bubetsu. 3 copies of our last grade 1 and our grade 1 in the ride line. Desire Double Gomon. So we run 2 in the main deck, 1 in the ride deck. AK base, 5k shield, grade 1 with boost. Auto when it's rode upon by Desire Double Bushoku. Reveal an Averse Demonic Dragon Greedon from your ride deck and draw a card. So pretty much reveal the ride line draw a card. If you run this in your ride deck, most likely you have Greedon in your ride line, unless you just choose to run this just to get into Soul for like things like Barrow Magnus maybe, and maybe Bruce, but I don't understand why you would need it in either. Like, I can understand why you need it in Barrow Magnus's main deck, but not its ride deck. And then auto when it's placed on rear. When it's put from rear into your soul by your Vanguard's ability, if your Vanguards are great, they're great to counterblast 1 until end of turn. When your opponent would call cards from hand to guard circle, they must call 2 or more at the same time. Honestly, I don't think you need this in Greedon. Like, I run it just in case that situation ever comes up where, like, they have a PG in hand just to force them out of PG, and, like, they're on low hand cards, but I honestly don't think you need this in Greedon because Greedon only swings once. This actually does better in Barrow Magnus because, like, you can use Barrow Magnus, suck everything to soul. This is one of them. Finish Barrow Magnus, go maybe call 2 Deep Sonicers or 2 Selfish Engravers or, like, 1 of each. Get them into the 20s, like, near 30s. And then this thing comes in because you sucked into soul. Counterblast 1 for the rest of the turn. They have to guard 2 or more because not just the Vanguard's battles for the rest of the turn. So, 3 attacks. They got to guard 2 or more each of them. So that's like 6 cards in total. Gomon honestly really helps out with the deck. He gets you, makes your opponent just discard more, honestly. So 2 copies of it in the main deck because you could use it, but also I think it preferably works better in Barrow Magnus. I don't run it in my Barrow Magnus build because it's a Desire Devil, so it's an archetype card, but still. Next up, we have 3 copies of Desire Devil Muka. 10k base, 5k shield, grade 2 with intercept. Auto when it's placed on rear from hand. If your Vanguard is Average, Demonic Dragon, Greedon, Counterblast 1, Soul Blast 2. Choose a card from your soul, call to rear guard, and auto rear when your Vanguard attacks. If you Persona Road this turn, choose your Vanguard, it gets +5 for the turn. So pretty much on place from hand. So you use this with Bubetsu to call Muka, and then you use Muka to get a Bubetsu or like something else and call stuff. And then you kind of just use those to get, you use 2 rabbits, then you use this thing, and then, you get a total of 4 rear guards, so you can do double Greedon restand. But then you're losing like 2 soul to do it. And 3 counterballs. But I think it still works. And then the Persona Ride ability is really good because, your Vanguard swings, it becomes a 18k, probably with some Bushakus behind it, so like at least 1, so 23k swing. And if you Persona Road, that's guaranteed like a 33. So really good card to have, like even if you just suck him to soul after you call him, he's really good just like for 1 attack. He also gets to keep the 5k by the way. So just for that 1 attack, he gets for 5k more. All around, Muka's pretty good, and I like him for that. And it does stack, so if you have 2 of them, it gets more power. 3 copies of it. 3 copies of our Desire Devil Keenan, 9k base, 5k shield, grade 2 with intercept. Auto when it's placed on rear during your main phase, counterblast 1, look at the top card of your deck, call it to rear guard, and at the end of the turn, retire that card. So unfortunately, you have to call it. It's not a May. You must call the top card, so if it's the over trigger, sucks to suck. You gotta do it. But at the end of the turn, it dies, so it's like Sharon, where you have to use it when you see it. But the good news is you can just suck it into soul with Greedon as soul fog, and that's what this is here for. Honestly, pretty good. Like, he makes it so that Greedon can restand easier and fixes the consistency problem all around. Like, I remember I have yet to use that skill properly, but then, like, the last game I played with Greedon, I actually used Keenan because I was 1 card short without having to call a PG or, like, a card I needed for guarding purposes. Keenan helped me get that 1 card that I needed because as long as it's not a order, I could call it, and he helped me get that 1 card, and I was able to do a Greedon restand. So all around, Keenan's very helpful, and I like him for it. If he didn't cost a counterblast, I think that would be better. I feel better with just soul blasting, but I think he's still good. So 3 copies of Keenan. And then our last grade 2 is our main grade 2 and our grade 2 of the Rhine line, Desire Devil Bushaku. If you have any chance to get this into soul, get into soul. 3 copies in the main deck, 1 copy in the ride deck. I think the only grade 2 you ever run 4 of in total. Grade 2, intercept, 5k shield, 10k base. He has the moon in the background, so already I'm biased to him. Auto when it's ruled upon by Average Demonic Dragon Greedon, put a hand card to soul, search your deck for up to 1 card, the same card name as this card, reveal it, put it to your hand, shuffle your deck. A lot of people get that confused. It is not put a hand card to soul and search your deck for the same copy of that hand card. So if you shuffle Greedon to soul, you don't search a Greedon. That's not its skill. You search for a copy of himself. So if you send a Greedon to soul, you're not searching a Greedon, you're searching this. I hope everyone's aware of that, because that's how the skill works. It's not shove Persona Ride to soul, get a Persona Ride back, so you can just, have set up at 7 damage, because otherwise I think Greedon would be a bit too good, arguably. And continuous soul. During your turn, if your damage on is 4 or more cards, the average Demonic Dragon Greedon on your van gets plus 5k power. So yeah, that's good. If you have like 4 of these soul Vanguards plus 20, you have at least 1, so plus 5. I typically have like 3, because the 4th one always ends up in damage for some reason, so plus 15 is pretty nice to van. The thing about this first skill, though, is that, like I said earlier, my friend he never uses that ability to send, like, another card to soul. He always still has Greedon to soul because he's willing to give up the Persona Ride to not die at 6, considering how much I rush Greedon. Honestly, anyone who's fighting Greedon and struggles with it, just rush it, because it dies real quickly if you rush, especially if you're going... If you get the first attack, rush it. Don't even... Actually, well, maybe if you don't get the first attack, like, if you're going first, rush him hell. Especially if, like, you're doing something with Nirvana. So, all around it helps, but because you normally just shove Greedon to soul, so you die at 7 to make it, like, you die less. Because I remember the first time my friend did that, if he didn't do it, he would have lost, because he thought I would pull a double crit during my drive check, so he took my drive check when he was at 3 damage. Yeah, I pulled a double crit. And it was when I was playing Battles with Graw. So if he didn't do it, yeah, he would have died from that. So yeah, he had a good reason to use it. So that's a way to do it if you want to be safe when you're playing Greedon. Just shove Greedon to soul immediately. Screw the Persona Ride, because arguably you don't really need it, and it just gives you, makes it so that you die at less really early. So 4 copies of Busaku. And then our last unit, and then our last card in the deck is 4 copies of Average Demonic Dragon Greedon, 3 of in the main deck, 1 of in the ride deck, 13k base, grade 3 to Persona Ride, continuous Vanguard. If your soul has an Average Demonic Dragon Greedon in it, and the number of cards you damage zone for you to lose becomes 7. So pretty much, like I said earlier, use Busaku to send a copy of him from hand to soul, die at 7 early so that you can afford to take some opponents' early attacks and put yourself to like 5 damage or 6 damage, just so you can get some Busakus off, because they require you to get 4 more damage. And then Auto Van, at the end of the battle that it attacked, Soul Blast 2 to choose to put 4 of your standing rear guards to Soul, stand itself, and if you have 10 or more cards in Soul, it gets plus 15. So if you have if you have 10, the same becomes a 28 restander, and if you have Bushakus in Soul, at least a 33. And not to mention, it's just Soul Blast 2-4, which isn't really that bad, and sending the standing rear guards to Soul, it'd be a lot more broken if it was rested rear guards, because you could do so many broken combos with this. All around, Greedon's pretty good, get you numbers. It can get like 80s, 70s, 60s, like it can hit numbers. I think it almost hit 100 one time when me and my friend were fucking around. Like, I don't know how we got it to hit 100, but I think at some point it was like on the verge of hitting 100. So yeah, Greedon hits numbers. Very scary, very big boy, very, very tough thing that you do not want to stare down in the middle of a black alley. So all around, Greedon's really good. Get you that power, get you that restand, and it's pretty fun to play. That's pretty much the deck. Like I said before, Greedon is interesting. Like, he has the power behind him. Set 4 literally with 2 cards gave him like so much consistency. He can do more drive checks. He can do more power. He can do more swings in a turn. While 2 swings with Vanguard isn't really much to talk about. It's much to talk about when Z2 swings are like somewhere in the 60s without any extra buffs. So, I mean, well, yeah, with extra buffs, but I mean that's like without triggers. So, all around, deck's very interesting, deck's very fun. I would like it more if the 2 bunnies would show up in my hand more than at one time, please, so I can actually play double Greedon restand, but no, it's fine. I don't get to experience it. Everyone else gets to experience double Greedon restand. I'm not allowed to do that, apparently, because apparently I'm not good. So, yeah, that's my thing, but all around, deck is pretty fun. I find it enjoyable. If you want to pick it up, go ahead, because I think this is one of the better decks in D, and definitely like one of the decks that gets supported a lot. If only the character that used him wasn't such an annoying-ass kid, then I might actually like Overdress a bit more than I did. So, I'm going to end it here. Hope you guys enjoyed. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, donate to the Patreon, join the Discord, follow the Twitch, and I'll see you on the next one. Don't forget to stand up your Vanguards.